The Great Barrier Reef is home to a wide range of biodiversity and is the largest reef ecosystem in the world. The reef ecosystem supports 600 species of coral, over 200,000 hectares of mangroves, and over 300,000 hectares of seagrasses. The Great Barrier Reef is a haven for over 2,000 species of fish and several IUCN Red List species threatened with extinction, and is an important fish breeding ground. Many of the species are also endemic to these reefs and rely on them for their survival. The Great Barrier Reef also consists of several IUCN protected areas. The Great Barrier Reef is listed as a World Heritage Site. In 1975, the reef was formally established as a marine park through the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Act.
The Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Zoning Plan of 2003 introduced 8 zones as a conservation management tool within the park. Protection and management of the reef is the responsibility of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority and the Queensland Government through their Joint Field Task Force. 2003 is the last time that new zoning boundaries were assessed and updated. Since then, numerous studies have discovered the benefits of highly protective zones, and currently only 0.2% of the park is in a preservation zone, which is grossly inadequate. Zones define physical boundaries to where certain sustainable activities are allowed to occur, helping to manage resources and use within the marine park. Each zone has different rules for the activities that are allowed, prohibited, or require a permit, ranging from general use, the lowest level of protection, allowing all activities including commercial fishing and trawling, to the highest level of protection, the no-go pink zones, that are free from all direct human interaction. NEOLI is a 5-point management plan that effective preservation zones adhere to. It stands for no take, enforced, old, large, and isolated. Due to their limited size, current pink zones cannot achieve or follow all recommendations of NEOLI. The importance of NEOLI is illustrated when using shark biomass as a surrogate. When 1 to 2 NEOLI recommendations are achieved, there is no significant difference compared to unprotected areas, whereas having 3 features showed an increase in biomass by 104%, and when having all 5 features, shark biomass increased by 1,990%.
Pink zones are the strictest and most effective for preserving biodiversity and enhancing ecosystem resilience. They are shown to have a significantly larger covering of massive undisturbed corals as compared to no-take green zones in northern midshell reefs and outer central reefs. Recent studies provide evidence of a direct correlation between reef health and the biodiversity it contains. A study conducted by Sala and Giacomi found that the biomass of whole fish assemblages in no-take areas averaged 670% greater than adjacent non-protected areas and 343% greater than less strict marine protected areas. Often this increase facilitates a chain reaction of ecological effects known as a trophic cascade. Pink zones provide an environment that eliminates anchor damage and vessel strikes. Vessel strikes cause seriously debilitating or fatal injuries to marine animals. The species most affected by vessel strikes include the loggerhead sea turtle and green turtle, who are both listed as endangered, and the dugong, which is listed as vulnerable by the IUCN. The formalisation of a new shipping route through the Great Barrier Reef has been projected. It could see increases of vessel strikes on humpback whales increase by up to 500%. With vessel traffic also comes the risk of invasive species being introduced via biofouling, which reduces the effectiveness of the protected area in its ability to conserve native species and biodiversity. Pink zones also provide protection from anchor damage to the reef structure. Vessel anchors and their chains cause physical damage to the coral, disturbing the ecosystem, making the coral more susceptible to disease. With each potential and could drop multiple colonies of coral can be damaged or destroyed. This can also affect coral's symbiotic partner, zooxanthellae, by promoting the growth of competitive algae. This impacts the coral's resilience. Prevention is key, especially for coral reefs, as restoration takes decades and can cost up to $10 million per hectare to restore. Although preservation zones do not directly address the issues of climate change and pollution, they do improve ecosystem resilience, which mitigates their effects. This improved resilience can even help lessen the impacts of extreme weather events such as 2009 Cyclone Hamish, where coral trout density was significantly less affected in no-take zones as compared to fished areas.
Evidence for the effectiveness of pink zones can also be found in the Capricorn Group, where a small 26 square kilometre isolated pink zone surrounds Wreck Island and its reef. Reef surveys conducted by the Australian Institute for Marine Science found that the percentage of hard coral covering Wreck Island reef rose from an average of 33% in the 2000s to 82% in the 2020s, which is considered extremely high relative to the long-term Great Barrier Reef averages. The nearby Erskine and Broomfield reefs under different zoning haven't showed nearly this level of recovery. Erskine Reef, a green zone, went from a 20% average hard coral cover in the 2000s to 40% in the 2020s, and actually showed an 11% drop in total fish species, whereas Wreck Island Reef showed a 5.5% increase in the same time span. The difference in hard coral recovery is believed to be partially caused by mechanical damage, likely caused by anchors found by researchers at Erskine Reef. Broomfield Reef, situated in a yellow conservation zone, went from 30% average hard coral cover in the 2000s to 60% in the 2020s, which shows immense progress, but not to the same levels seen in Wreck Island Reef. Both reefs also showed a less consistent and slower increase of fish abundance as compared to Wreck Island. Wreck Island Reef is a prime example of how effective a strategically placed pink zone can be. And if we were able to expand this zone to encompass the surrounding reefs and islands on the Capricorn Group, we may be able to replicate these amazing results throughout. This expansion would also have the added bonus of protecting important mating and nesting grounds for both the green sea turtle and loggerhead sea turtles on the east coast of Australia.
There is debate whether commercial fishing and tourism is evenly balanced within the environmental protection. Should these industries be more strictly regulated within the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park to preserve biodiversity for generations to come? Ecosystem services generate $6.4 billion annually into the local and regional economies through commercial fishing and tourism. These industries have a negative impact, including environmental pollution, structural reef damage, injury or death to marine life, and the reduction of top trophic level species. 8,000 tonnes of seafood is harvested from the Great Barrier Reef through the commercial fishing annually. The tourism industry funnels 2 million tourists each year through the delicate ecosystem, even though studies show carrying capacity of the individual reefs to be approximately 5,000 divers per year per site. With a large number of commercial vessels that navigate the marine park, accidents happen. Like the grounding of the Panama-based oil tanker in 2015, which resulted in 10 to 15 tonnes of oil washing up along the shoreline around Townsville and Hinchinbrook Island, costing over $1.5 million to clean up.
The expansion of current pink zones relies on extensive scientific research, funding and cooperation between interest groups. These zones can also be very challenging to enforce. When new zoning plans are drafted for the expansion of preservation zones, there can be pushbacks from industries because of lack of education and perceived loss of income. Marine protected areas minimise the effects of overexploitation, but only if the zone is large enough to support a stable population of target species. This has obvious ecological benefits as well as potential financial benefits through the spillover effects. Approximately $200 million annually is allotted by the federal and Queensland governments for investment into the health of the Great Barrier Reef. The Intergovernmental Agreement ensures that funds are used in accordance with the Reef 2050 Long-Term Sustainability Plan, which was Australia's formal response to the recommendations provided by the UNESCO World Heritage Committee, and outlines investment priorities and strategies in regards to reef health.
Pink zones currently in the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park are one of the best examples of systemic conservation, and despite their 0.2% total volume are effective at conserving an ecosystem, increasing the biomass and species richness, along with protecting the coral from damage and encouraging natural restoration, working best when planned, managed and enforced effectively. Unfortunately, these zones are small and the consequences of their size is evident. If the current conservation plan does not adapt, then important areas of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park will continue to be subjected to human interference, such as anchor damage, vessel strikes, and over-exploitation. This does not have to stay this way forever, as the introduction or expansion of more strategically placed and well-managed pink zones could mean life and not death for the reef ecosystem and the many unique species that call it home.